Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.
The Conjuring Last Rites. On September 5th. The Conjuring Last Rites. Only in theaters September 5th. Rated R.
Streaming September 4th on Peacock.
We sell toilet tissue and local newspapers. That is in order of quality.
From the crew that brought you The Office
My name is Ned Sampson. I am your new editor-in-chief.
comes a new comedy series.
Have you read this paper?
It sucks. But we are going to make it better.
Meet the underdog journalists
I hope it's not too disruptive to have me shake everything up.
Don't be so self-defecating.
with major issues.
Oscar. Oh, God. Not again.
The Paper, only on Peacock, September 4th.
I don't know, Gavin. It's kind of like a gin and tonic, but for cool people. Ass. The following podcast contains
like FU and S and stuff like that, and then MF and stuff like that. Those are they're not words. Those are names of spirits.
explicit language. Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you took out a second mortgage on your house for an MBA from Harvard, what the hell were you thinking, Ed? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is episode number 505, the Thanks for Your Support edition of the show. We're talking about that time in the 80s when the wine companies made wine cool for kids. Stay tuned. The What the Hell We Thinking podcast is brought to you by Super Happy Fun Booze, the bright candy-flavored, highly alcoholic beverage by and for adults and adults only. Super Happy Fun Booze mixes the finest 100-proof grain alcohol with fun colors and flavors to make a drink only a kid at heart could love. Definitely not anyone under the age of 21. With flavors like blackout blueberry, stumbling strawberry, wasted watermelon, loaded lemon, and plastered peach, Super Happy Fun Booze packs a lot of proof and a lot of flavor that is in no way marketed to people under legal drinking age. Super Happy Fun Booze. It comes in a snack pack foil package because that is how adults drink alcohol.
The call across Canada this summer is for coolers. They're new, easy to drink, thirst quenchers that are the fastest trickling offshoot of the already prosperous liquor trade. But there is one fact about coolers that addiction researchers don't find so refreshing. They're being swallowed a lot by the young. Marina Mirabella reports.
It's a hot, sticky weekday afternoon. These people have found one way to cool off, sitting around sipping cold drinks. An increasing number of them are sipping coolers, beverages that combine fruit juices and carbonated water with wine or spirits.
Well, it goes down very smooth. It's just, it's really just like drinking lemonade.
Back in my day,
Okay, Grandpa.
there were 3 stages of growing up. They occurred in different order for different people, but they were the same milestones we all experienced, and I'm given to understand that they were 3 things that kids today just don't seem to do. In no particular order, the first was, of course, getting your driver's license.
I have my license!
Every 16-year-old aspired to have that sacred card in their wallet that allowed those people with still developing brains to operate a 2,000-pound hunk of metal with wheels on public roads. I'm given to understand that 1 in 4 of today's teens are actually afraid to drive, and many of them aren't bothering to get their license at all. The second milestone was, of course, losing one's virginity.
I'm not a virgin anymore!
This was a big one, and arguably the hardest to accomplish. Some kids waited until they were well up into their 20s.
When did you lose your virginity?
Let's say I was a late bloomer and leave it at that. But unlike kids today, which I understand are afraid to have sex, I wanted to get rid of it as soon as I possibly could. And finally, the last milestone was your first time getting drunk.
Finally found something you're good at.
This rite of passage was by far the easiest to accomplish, but modern listeners should not assume that there were no challenges whatsoever, because, pod friends, you have no idea of the struggle, because we didn't have the options modern teens have today. Modern teens, who I'm informed, are afraid to get drunk. Honestly, what do children today do for fun? They don't drink, they don't have to drive, they don't have sex. Never mind. The struggle I'm referring to, of course, is the options for how one got drunk our first time, because there were only two. You could drink beer, or you could drink liquor.
How about some stolen wine?
I guess maybe some kids got wine drunk their first time, but come on. No one was giving a homeless guy $20 and sent him into the liquor store for a 1970 cockatoo Rod Laver and then pondering cheese pairings with it. Nah, you got beer or you got liquor. And beer was by far the most common choice. And trust me, you were not buying Bob's bare-ass India Pale Pilsner milk snot. You were getting as much
of a crappy domestic river beer
as you could possibly afford. If you did get liquor, it was because someone had stolen a bottle of hard liquor from a parent or relative who either drank a whole lot and couldn't keep track of what they had, or barely drank at all and forgotten someone gave them a bottle for Christmas 5 years ago and the kid had stashed it away for future use. Either way, your first drunk was a horrible drunk, because beer is very much an acquired taste when you drink it.
It tastes like feet.
Or you wind up mixing cheap scotch with fruit punch and discovering that there's no way in hell you should ever do that, but you drink it anyway. Because it really doesn't matter which one you choose, it tastes as bad going down as it will coming up. That was until the 80s, when liquor companies discovered they could make booze taste good. Which brings me to this week's topic, that time in the 80s when everyone was obsessed with drinking fruity wine drinks because that they thought they wouldn't make them either unhealthy or alcoholics. They were wrong on both, of course, on both counts, but more importantly, this new product finally allowed a generation to get drunk for the first time on something that didn't taste like feet. But first,
Can we just not, please?
you need to understand why people wanted something that gave them the illusion of being healthy booze. It's because starting in the 1970s, Americans became really concerned about their health. Not all of them, mind you, certainly not the aging members of the greatest generation who figured since they had survived the Depression and won the war, they deserved to get fat and cancerous. But their kids, the baby boomers, they began their long obsession with living forever, and their path to immortality started with jogging.
We both work in offices all day. Running helps us to unwind. We sleep better, we feel better, more alert. Running is now part of our life.
Look around. Everywhere you see people just like you getting the exercise they need and loving it. Get a checkup, then join them. In the long run, you'll be the winner. Send for this free booklet. Write Running, Washington, D.C. 20201.
I mean, you got to keep in mind that fitness was not just a health thing. It quickly metastasized into a cultural status symbol fueled by the marketing and advertising industries. Before long, the brands were created to sell you things that you needed when you exercised, like branded clothing and shoes. What kind of gauche ass would jog in anything but Nike running shoes and while wearing Nike running shorts and a Nike running shirt? Exchange Nike for whatever brand you happen to be wearing at the time.
From day one, runners have taken their sport rather seriously. Once things got a little better organized, people started taking notes, analyzing how they ran and how they could run even faster. Today at Nike, we know even more. We developed one of the most sophisticated sport research labs in the world to let us see, in detail, the peculiarities of style, the dynamics of foot strike. And at Nike, we're putting that knowledge to work, making shoes that actually help athletes to run faster and safer. Why do we go to so much trouble? Well, it may be the 20th century and all that, but there are still people out there who run as if their life depended on it.
But if you were really into fitness, you eschewed the girly cardio of running and you built fucking muscle. Now, weightlifting had long been a thing in fitness training, but in the 70s and 80s, it was no longer about building your body for peak performance. It was about building your body for peak appearance. And it largely began with a book and subsequent movie centered around the men, and it was always men, who sculpted their body in totally heterosexual ways that grew out of the Venice Beach's so-called muscle beach called pumping iron.
Welcome to this year's Mr. Olympia Championship. There certainly has never been a competition like this before.
Lou Ferrigno.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You have to do everything possible to win.
I dreamt about Arnold last night. I said, Louis is waiting for you in the shadows.
Well, I've not been beaten for the last 7 years.
You recognize those names, or at least one of them. They both went on to careers in Hollywood. Let's be truthful, neither Arnold nor Lou were particularly good actors, but they certainly were big actors in both the literal and metaphorical sense. Again, this was a guy thing, and Madison Avenue was not one to leave fitness money on the table. So they began looking for a way to get more women into this fitness thing. Something not so macho as pumping iron, not so time-consuming as jogging, maybe something they could do in a quick and easy class.
Oh yeah, that's good. Ho! Now your favorite thing, the hip strugger. Come on and shake that cute little booty of yours. Ow! Chicka, 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 chicka. Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Find it, feel it, do it. All right, yeah.
Jazzercise began in classes where women and a smattering of men in spandex would sculpt their cute little booties, but with the advent of the VCR, it would explode, and tubby Americans could now experience a full-body workout from the comfort of their own home and avoid the embarrassment of being seen in spandex. These new aerobic videos revolutionized how Americans pretended to exercise, and the face of it was none other than Nepo baby, revolutionary anti-war protester Jane Fonda.
Are you ready to do the workout? Yeah! This is the beginner's workout. Stand with your feet a little more than hip distance apart, stomach tight, buttock pulled in, pull out of your torso, and head right, to and back, to left, stretch it out front and to the right. 1, 2, back, left, forward. Now reverse it to the left.
By the mid-1980s, America was obsessed with exercise and nutrition, but they were still doing all the bad stuff they'd always done. Smoking, fatty foods, cocaine, and of course, drinking like fish. Now, while these particular products were never marketed expressly as a healthy alternative to beer and or hard liquor, it was just sort of inferred in their marketing. When in the 80s, when someone said all natural, people just assumed that it meant that it was good for you. It allowed them to mentally put themselves in that gray area where they could pretend that drinking booze was somehow good for you. And so some entrepreneurs thought to themselves, we should really come up with an alcoholic drink that was healthy, or failing that, come up with an alcoholic drink that we could say was healthier, and then people could possibly accept that as true. And so there was a race for the big booze producers to find a drink that they could market as an alternative to beer or hard liquor for the fitness-minded American. And they would find it, in all places, Lodi, California.
I'm in Lodi.
Today, of course, the most refreshing diversion in Lodi is methamphetamine. Back in the 1970s, a new beverage was making a stir in local bars and spreading out to less methy parts of the state. Local Lodian Michael Crete was looking for a way to make his fortune, and after college, he was back in an unspectacular hometown. Honestly, if you've ever been to Lodi, I'm sorry. But I'll just let the Lodi News take it from there in a 2000 article. Quote, Crete took a job selling and delivering beer in the Lodi area. A quick study, he analyzed distribution systems, marketing approaches, and product lines. Then, at a weekend barbecue with friends, Crete began mixing up a favorite party drink of wine and fruit juice. Again, something clicked. I stopped and said to myself, everybody loves this. We could sell this. We could sell a lot of this. With partner Stuart Booley, Crete gathered capital and perfected recipes and launched a new product, the wine cooler, unquote. What exactly is a wine cooler?
Oh, honey, it's sangria.
Yeah, I mean, basically, for as long as humans have been drinking wine, they've been mixing it with fresh fruit, and it's been a thing. Roots of the drink of sangria come out of medieval Spain. Sangria proper is from Portugal and Spain in the mid-19th century. Now, a better analogy to a proper wine cooler is wine punch, which dates to the 17th century when a wide variety of tropical fruits became available in Europe, and Europeans began properly mixing them with wine and other spirits. A wine cooler is literally nothing more than a carbonated wine punch and then bottled and sold rather than offered in a glass bowl at stuffy parties and weddings. But Michael Crete was the man who came up with the idea to put them in the bottle for the first time. Crete told Wired.com in 2018, quote, "The original wine cooler was the California Cooler, a drink born in the salt spray and endless summer vibes of Southern California's surf beaches." This, aside from the quoted text, Lodi is no fucking where close to the goddamn beach. It is a shithole farm town in the Central Valley of California. Lodi is closer to Turlock, Fresno. These are not salt-sprayed anything. They're meth-ravaged shitholes. I'm going back to the text now. The gang would get together on the beach in Santa Cruz, and I would mix together all these tropical flavors, pineapple, grapefruit, lemon lime, with white wine, a little bit of club soda. Everyone loved it. So he teamed up with his high school buddy, Stuart Bewley, who had a business degree and a knack for financial wizardry, and they spent a year and a half perfecting the formula, finding the right mix of fruit juices, wine, and carbonation to produce a citrusy drink with sunny tropical feels. They packaged it in 12-ounce green glass bottles with a gold tinfoil top, like the kind of Beck's beer, Crete told me, and sold it chilled in 4-packs, unquote. To do this, Crete bought cheap California wine from the vineyards, the kind of wine that was never destined for discerning palates, but for cheap bottled swill that forms the base of some of the finer drinks on the market.
It's Mad Dog.
Mad Dog?
Taking this substandard wine, Crete mixed with fruit juices concentrates and put them in a 12-ounce bottle and some fizzy parts, and slapped the label California Coolers on it and began selling it to distributors. By 1985, California Cooler was moving 12.3 million cases a year. At its peak, California Cooler was the second largest seller of wine products in the world after Ernst and Julio Gallo. As you might imagine, Gallo quickly recognized there was money and they were not getting a piece of it, and began scrutinizing this startup business in Lodi. More from Wired, quote, "The big booze companies were desperate for a piece of the wine cooler action. Ernst and Julio Gallo were hovering their company helicopter over our plant," Bewley recalls. "They had their guys in the parking lot with binoculars, photographing how many trucks were coming in and out, trying to figure out what the hell we were doing. We'd bring them coffee," unquote. Gallo, which finally dropped the E&J in 2024 because Ernst and Julio had been dead for decades, was and is the largest family-owned winery in California and the largest exporter of California wines in the world. Today, it produces 3% of all the wine in the world and an annual 35 million bottles every year, earning over $5 billion in revenue, and the company is actually somewhat bigger in the 80s, though maybe not as profitable. Gallo wines sell under various labels and are all of varying quality, but are generally considered to be...
She deserves better than boxed wine.
Which is why the company was perfect for the wine cooler market. Having so much money, Gallo had one thing Crete didn't: a massive marketing budget for their entry into the cooler market, and they hired Hal Riney Partners, an ad agency, to sling their slop. Riney was a massive name in West Coast advertising and had made his bones in the ad world with an ad for Crocker Bank that hit number 2 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the adult contemporary charts in 1971.
We've only just begun to live. White lace and prom.
Admittedly, that was a Carpenter's version, but Hal Riney wrote the fucking song. Hal Riney hit the big time in 1984 when he played a massive role in the re-election of, yeah, you guessed it, Ronald Reagan.
He said it!
When he made this ad that wallpapered over the holes that Reagan had punched in the social safety net, government regulation, and international affairs with a gauzy hunk of turgid bullshit that credited Reagan with the short-term economic impact of deficit-inducing tax cuts and government spending on the military.
It's morning again in America.
What Riney did for Gallo were a set of iconic characters that were instantly familiar to any aging Gen Xer.
Hello there. My name is Frank Bartles, and this is Ed Jaymes. You know, it occurred to Ed the other day that between his fruit orchard and my premium wine vineyard, we could make a truly superior premium grade wine cooler. It sounded good to me, so Ed took out a second on his house and wrote to Harvard for an MBA, and now we're preparing to enter the wine cooler business. We will try to keep you posted on how it's going. Thank you very much for your support.
Wikipedia sums up this iconic ad campaign thusly, quote, "Two older gentleman characters, Frank Bartles and Ed Jaymes, sat on a front porch and related their new discoveries or projects on which they were working. The characters were patterned after the winery's founders, Ernst and Julio Gallo. Occasionally, ads would be a twist on the ideas of a senior citizen or folksiness, such as having the pair fly an old-fashioned biplane over the beach and then airdrop crates of their product, which were received by grateful young party animals. Bartles did all the talking and ended each commercial with, "And thank you for your support," unquote. There is no simple explanation as to why these two figures suddenly attained almost Spuds McKinsey levels of cultural recognition, and why that recognition was almost entirely in the under 25 set. Nothing about the two screamed party time. They were two old men, and while from time to time the ads might feature young people doing wild young people party things, Frank and Ed definitely did not. They maintained their rustic country demeanor. No matter what the situation was, they found themselves delivering their fruity, fizzy teen-age drink. Maybe it was the utter inexplicability of these two that made us want to know more about them and, of course, consume their product. The Orlando Sentinel, back in the 1986, created an entire backstory for Ed and Frank. Quote, "They are, of course, bootleggers. They live in a little town on the Cumberlands, Buchanan County in the western, not West Virginia, near the Kentucky line. They make the coolers in the barn on a farm up on the Razorback Mountain at the other confusion of the federal revenue agents. Ed, he's the one who doesn't talk, never amounted to much. He dropped out of school in the 10th grade, helps with the tobacco and corn on the family farm, and the rest of the time he hangs around the feed store looking for odd jobs. Not very hard. He runs the bottling machine and drives the wine cooler truck for Frank, who pays him off the books. Ed has a sister, Myrna, who married the guy who becomes the president of the Farmers and Miners Bank. The banker doesn't suspect, and neither does Ed, but Myrna takes an occasional matinee at the No-Tell Motel over on Fox Creek with, you guessed it, Frank Bartles. And she tells her husband, the banker, what a nice guy Frank is to help that no-good brother Ed get his feet on the ground," unquote. My friends, this story goes on with there. It's linked in the show notes. It is definitely worth the read for the sheer soap opera that this writer has made of Frank and Ed. I would watch the movie of these two, the biopic of these two, if they ever made it. Ed and Frank would go on to appear in 230 radio and television commercials before the Bartles and Jaymes campaign ended. Gallo was quickly joined in the market by the competitors with their big market ad campaigns. More from Wired, quote, "Seagram's was a close second. Their pitchman was Bruce Willis."
What would you like?
Well, I don't know. What do I feel like?
Why not try something you've never had before?
Is that a line?
No, it's a drink. Seagram's Golden Wine Cooler. It's wet, it's dry, it's new, and it's Seagram's.
You sound like a commercial.
You buying it?
The drink? Yeah, but not the line.
It's a start.
New Seagram's Golden Wine Cooler. It's wet and it's dry.
In his moonlighting days, pre-Die Hard, back when he still had most of his hair and was basically a testosterone popsicle. Their words, not mine. He prances across neon New York in a white suit to a subterranean wine cooler club. He puts the move on Sharon Stone, was that commercial, who coolly rebuffs him. He sings the white guy blues on a porch with a shaggy dog. It's wet and it's dry. That was the Seagram's tagline. Then there was Sun Country Wine Coolers, which recruited a truly primo roster of celebrities. Ringo Starr, Grace Jones, Charo, sometimes wearing polar bear costumes for its bizarre yet compelling ads, unquote. Sun Country Wine Coolers were always my favorite because they came in 2-liter bottles, which meant that I could get very fucked up without having to taste feet. And this would all signal the beginning of the end for wine coolers. In 1985, California Coolers was sold to a liquor company, Brown & Forman, for $146 million and just basically disappeared. Sales of wine coolers began to slow, and the companies responded by ramping up the variations of their flavors, moving away from the fairly traditional straight fruit flavors into the flavor-blasted breakfast cereal era of wine coolers. Drinks purporting to taste like margaritas, daiquiris, pina coladas, along with infinite variation of fruit juice mixes, all of which looked like cough syrup and tasted only marginally better. By 1987, sales dropped off hard, and by 1991, the final nail in the cooler coffin was driven home when the tax break on wine that fueled the ocean of marginal domestic wine that went into them was repealed by George H.W. Bush when he reneged on his promise to
read my lips. No new taxes.
And the wine cooler companies switched to a much cheaper malt beverage. We discussed that switch in detail and when we talked about Zima in episode number 418.
That's a plug.
And people had finally moved on to other forms of intoxication, partially because we were just growing out of the shitty, sugary booze era, and partially because the booze had become much shittier and much more sugary. But wine coolers clung on with one vital demographic. Again, from Wired, quote, "One group, however, did not give up wine coolers. Underage drinkers. From the outset, public health officials had fretted that coolers, with the buzz of beer but the taste of soda pop, were gateway booze for teens and preteens. We think that wine coolers are like training beers," said the executive director of a national anti-drug nonprofit in 1988. "It's an introductory way to get kids involved with drinking alcohol. Wine coolers soon become the drink of choice for the prom, pre-gaming, and illicit teenage house parties. A 1991 government report estimated that 35% of all the coolers sold in the United States were chugged by high school juniors and seniors. All this contributed to wine coolers' declining reputation. They were no longer fruity summertime refreshments for fun-loving adults. They were starter booze that you'd better learn to outgrow or accept that you had bad taste," unquote. Wine coolers experience as sporadic renaissances as waves of nostalgia ripple through aging generations. Millennials like to dip their toes in brand reboots, and chic bars trot out house versions of coolers with kitschy retro names. The few coolers that remained are lost in the mishmash of White Claws, Twisted Teas, hard lemonades, and Smirnoff ices, and apple ciders which contain another apple North cider. The modern fake healthy booze market is now low-calorie and non-alcoholic booze. Which, okay, fine. If that's your thing, I will even admit that non-alcoholic Guinness is damn close to an actual Guinness. But if you're an Irishman who's taken the pledge of being able to hoist a pint with the lads down at the pub and stay sober, I guess that's valuable. But for the rest of us, why bother? I mean, if you're trying to watch your calories, why are you drinking beer in the first place? Take an edible and drink a glass of fucking water. Only in America can we take the already incredibly shitty beers that we mass produce and make them, by stripping out the calories and the alcohol, somehow even shittier. God bless America.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Diet Coke. You know that moment when you just need to hit pause and refresh? An ice-cold Diet Coke isn't just a break. It's your chance to catch your breath and savor a moment that's all about you. Always refreshing, still the same great taste. Diet Coke. Make time for you time.
That is it for the show this week. This week is a holiday. It's Labor Day here in the United States, so I thought I'd do something a little bit less weighty than I had the past few weeks, something a little frivolous, and honestly, you cannot get much more frivolous than a show about wine coolers, because between you and me, I liked wine coolers. They were my starter drink, and I drank a lot of them. Shit, if they still made them with actual real wine, I'd drink them now. You know, when I'm at home, not at a bar, because I have a reputation to uphold.
Sad old drunk.
Speaking of sad old drunks, rate and review this show so others can find it. Take a listen to a sad old drunk and go on and on about how much better booze was when he was young and, I don't know, feel sad for me or something. And maybe kick me $1 at patreon.com/whatthehellpodcast because we use that money to pay for our California coolers. Do all the things that Jeremy tells you to do in the closing credits, otherwise he will replace me with a pair of folksy old men created by an ad agency. So for me, Dave, I like wine coolers, like all the old schoolers Bledsoe. Producer,
Chilling out, watching something called Ferris Bueller.
Gavin, and all the fictional Bartles on this show, we want to say, drink the cooler, man. It's gonna pay off, and we'll see you all next week.
Like being hit by a torpedo blast. Tolerance, I don't hardly got none. With a body weight that's such a hot one. 115, and here's a shot. Half of that is in my cock. This shit is sweet like fucking Kool-Aid, but not the kind you have at school age. I keep a case in my trunk. That's right, punk, I'm always crunked. Well, I like wine coolers. Well, I drink wine coolers. Yeah, I like wine coolers.
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
What did Michael Jackson do?
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.